Hello and welcome to this calm little corner where I talk with other not a messy bitches about how organization helps them thrive. Today, I'm so excited for our guest, Ellyn Schinke, to discuss burnout with us. Ellyn is an NLP practitioner, a former scientist, and a certified professional coach. After spending over a decade in academic and corporate environments, she is on a mission to help high achieving female entrepreneurs and women in corporate to free themselves from burnout. Ellyn is on a mission to empower you with the knowledge, the mindset, and the tools to realize that burnout is a choice and that you can choose differently. Welcome.
Thank you so much. That was a great little intro there.
I am just so excited to talk to you because I feel like now more than ever, I'm hearing so many people say that they just feel like more is being asked of them than they can possibly give. And that's leading to burnout. And we don't often even dare to label it burnout. And so I need to pick your brain on this.
Yeah. And it's interesting. Even the other day, my boyfriend tagged me in something on LinkedIn saying how employee burnout is on the rise right now because, everybody keeps waiting for the light at the end of the tunnel when it comes to work from home and this pandemic and all of these changes that have happened to our work and our lives. We're looking for the light at the end of the tunnel and it just keeps getting pushed further and further out. So burnout is real. I know. The burnout is real, people. And if you are feeling it, you're so not alone.
Okay, so let's talk about this. You have described burnout as being a spectrum. What does that mean?
Basically, what that means to me is this. So burnout is essentially something where you can have a very mild burnout, or you could have something that's very, very severe. It's not a light switch. That's kind of the analogy I use is you have a light switch and you have a dimmer switch for lights in your house, right? You have one or the other. And burnout is not a light switch. It's not something that turns on and off. It's something that accumulates over time. So when that burnout gets really, really severe, it's because you have turned up that dimmer over time. And that severe burnout is the one that's really, really hard to fix. Mild burnout, you can maybe fix with a few lifestyle changes, some better boundaries. Severe burnout is going to take a lot more, but if you don't fix it, that's when you veer into breakdown, and breakdown can be very, very messy.
And I think it's such a bold stance that you take when you say that burnout is a choice. Tell me more.
The first time I said that, I was just like, this is going to piss some people off. But I do really feel like burnout is a choice, especially for that high achiever mentality. A lot of us are people pleasers or recovering people pleasers. We're perfectionists. And a lot of the things that are burning ourselves out, they are self-inflicted. It is us saying yes to too much, taking too much on, trying to be too much to other people. I love the mentality. I actually just got back from a trip to Vegas. And I love the airplane mentality. Like every time I get on an airplane now, I pay so much more attention when they say, you need to put your oxygen mask on before you put the mask on others. We're all familiar with that analogy. And the same thing applies to our life, because if you make the choice to help someone else before you help yourself, you are not only putting yourself at a disadvantage, you are pouring from an empty cup, but you're not giving the best of yourself to whoever you're pouring into. So that's what I mean when I say burnout's a choice. We are choosing to take things on. We are choosing to not say no, even though we know we should. And some of the time we're choosing the very behaviors and routines and patterns that are leading to our burnout. And I like that stance because I personally find it to be so much more empowering than I am burned out. As opposed to I am burning myself out. I think it's such an empowering change of mindset. And even though it might put people on the defensive at first, I actually do feel like that is the better way to think about burnout.
Yeah, it is empowering. It is really important to switch from that passive to that active voice and to recognize that you can be an agent of change in your own life. You can create the life, the balance that you need to thrive. Okay, so how do we recognize when we are running low on oxygen? How do we recognize when when we need to put the mask on?
Mm-hmm.
What does burnout look like?
Okay, well, the first thing, I'm actually going to share my screen really quickly, and I'm glad we prepped for this because these were the ones that I really wanted to touch on. I'm going to share my screen. We're going to do the full blown thing here.
I love it.
There are four main types of burnout. There is boredom burnout, which is kind of the fulfillment side of burnout. If you're not fulfilled by the work you're doing, or you don't feel challenged by the work you're doing, especially as a high achiever or somebody who's very type A, you're going to veer into that boredom burnout and it's not going to feel good. There's also overwhelm burnout, which is the productivity side. You are taking on too much and you're overwhelmed by it. Like you commended me at the beginning of our call today for taking a bit of a step back from my typical Instagram presence.
Mm-hmm.
And that's because I'm overwhelmed this week and I know it and I know what to look for. And we'll talk about the signs in just a second. But then there's also the physical side, like that lack of energy, that lack of like mental clarity. A lot of that is the physical component. And then you also have the emotional side, which I distinguish this as the self-care side, because a lot of the emotional type of burnout we see is a lack of awareness. It can be a lack of, just engagement in your life. The things there are a lot of times feeling jaded by what's happening in your life. So actually, let's just go straight into the signs because a lot of these overlap with those four types. So these are some of the really, really common signs, particularly in high achievers. First one to look for is very, very physical. It's that drained, exhausted feeling. It's when you hit a wall at the end of your day and you just have nothing left to give.
Mm-hmm.
Another thing to look for with the drained and exhausted is, and this happens to my boyfriend, he'll be like, I'm fine, I'm fine, I'm fine, I'm fine. And then he will suddenly sleep for 12 hours and be like, oh, I don't know why I did that. So that's another thing to look for in that whole feeling drained and exhausted. From the emotional side, feelings of apathy and disinterest. If you're somebody who's usually highly engaged in the work that you're doing, love your job, love what you do, whether you are in corporate or you have a business or whatever perspective we're looking at, and suddenly you feel yourself being very checked out, that could be a big contributor or a sign of burnout. Numbing more with whatever your go-to numbing is, maybe it's candy, maybe it's that one glass of wine at the end of the day turns into more than one glass of wine at the end of the day, or you're just binging Netflix way more than you typically are. That could be a sign of burnout, particularly emotional burnout. Planning an escape or a getaway, which I was literally doing. I posted it on Instagram yesterday, how much I wanted to be in Hawaii instead of working because I was feeling it this week. And constantly feeling overwhelmed. And then from the physical side, if you see yourself getting sick more frequently, or you just feel like maybe you have a cold that you can't shake or a cough that you can't shake, that's also a really good sign that you're probably...
It may not be COVID, it may be burnout.
Yeah, actually. Yeah, not everything. That's the microbiologist background in me, is not everything is COVID. Sometimes it's just you're not taking care of yourself.
Yeah, wow. And I think a lot of those things aren't obvious, right? But like
a lot
planning
of them
the
fly under
vacation
the radar.
doesn't feel like an obvious sign of burnout. It just seems like something that you're supposed to do and you're supposed to treat yourself to once a year, 3 times a year, what have you.
I think the big thing to look for there too is if it becomes a pattern. If it becomes I have a period of every 3 months where suddenly I get into this headspace where I'm very apathetic and disinterested, that could be your burnout cycle, because it is a cycle that can repeat when you're not being proactive about taking care of it and managing it. So if you see those things repeat, pretty good sign that you're dealing with some sort of a burnout cycle that you're probably going to want to intervene on.
That's interesting. It's interesting to think about this planning a vacation, this escape to another destination. And we are living in times when we really, a lot of us are pretty tied down, right? We're grounded. We can't travel as much. So how does our immediate environment affect our wellness?
Definitely. I feel like the immediate environment, this is where the NLP kind of comes in, because one of my favorite things about NLP is what they call the logical levels of change. And the base of that pyramid, it's like a pyramid of 5 different steps. The base of that pyramid is environment. And basically what that is kind of saying is if you change your environment, it's going to help you reinforce change in all these other parts of your life and your behaviors and your beliefs and your purpose. And I feel like it's the exact same way with burnout. If you think of, the moments when you walk into a room and it just like, I feel like we've all had this. You walk into a room that's not as organized as you want it to be, that kind of maybe looks like a bomb has exploded. Parents, I'm sure you deal with this a lot more than me. I don't have kids, but you have that kind of thing hit you in the face of, oh my God, this room's a mess. And then it starts spiraling to my life's a mess. I'm so not put together. That's kind of the way in which your environment impacts your wellness, because your environment can be a trigger for larger problems that are going on. Or on the opposite side, your environment can be an almost escape. Like if you had a one spot in your house that was your little sanctuary, so you always kept it organized, that could be the place you go where the overwhelm gets too real in the rest of your life. So I really do think environment can be very, very impactful on the stress side as well as on the calm side, particularly in COVID, in the pandemic.
Yeah. I'm so glad that you said that, because I mean, even before the pandemic, a lot of the clients that I would work with, it was clear to me that there was something very unmanageable about their homes, and that's why they had to call in an expert. Does burnout affect our ability to be organized?
Yes, I would say it does, because I mean, when you look at your house, and it's probably why they called in an expert, when you look at your house and things feel unmanageable and things feel like you're never going to get it under control, doing that yourself, particularly when you're already stressed, you're already burned out, you're already overwhelmed, it feels like another to-do list item. And the last thing we need, especially from that overwhelm side of burnout, is another to-do list item. So when you're overwhelmed, that is like massively triggering and can just add to whatever stress and burnout you're already experiencing. Now, from like the other side of that, yes, it can be triggering, but it can also really, really support bouncing back from burnout. And it's kind of the example I gave a second ago. If you have that one calm space in your environment, then it might give you that escape you need from the rest of your life. And that can be tremendously helpful when you're burned out. Like it almost kind of gives you, like, even if we're talking about just organizing a space, like maybe you don't have that space, but you want it. The great thing about doing that, it gives you a small win. If you just say, I'm going to organize my desk, since so many of us I'm sitting at my desk right now. So many of us are spending so much time at our desks. If we just say, I'm going to organize this one space, that can give you a small win towards your burnout, towards your organization, that pushes you forward. And that one little moment of victory is exactly what we need to get our motivation going to tackle burnout and tackle stress in the other parts of our lives. One of my favorite old analogies, this was like pre-burnout Ellyn coaching, is that momentum is motivating. Like if you think about that textbook analogy of a ball rolling down a hill or a snowball rolling down a hill, that snowball's building as it rolls. That's exactly how motivation and momentum work. So if you can give that one little organizational win, that can be what gets your snowball rolling and helps you tackle burnout and all of these other parts of your life.
Yeah, small steps are what it takes to build sustainable change.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Would you offer any other suggestions for how we can take that first small step? I feel like a lot of people, their main objection is, I'm just too tired at the end of the day. It almost feels like it would require less energy to just keep up this hamster wheel. Like I'm used to it, right? It's at least I know what I have to deal with, as opposed to I don't know if if the steps I'm making towards a change in my life are going to work, right? I don't want to
Yes.
invest in something that's not going to work. What would you
Yes.
say to someone who has that objection?
I totally get that objection. It's why I said just a second ago, it does. It feels like another to-do list task. And when you're tired, this is the last thing you want to do. But ultimately, I think the big thing here is it's an instant versus delayed gratification thing. This is probably one of the biggest boundaries to making a habit change, just overarchingly, because so many habits and so many things that we're implementing, particularly from the perspective of burnout, like I'll acknowledge that, I'll be transparent about that, are things that you may not get an instant benefit from. It's the other things, or it's the delayed gratification and those delayed benefits that a lot of changes we make in burnout are really giving us. And I get how hard that can be. It's one of the biggest struggles I have to talk about with clients. The good thing is, particularly from the perspective of organization, is talk about something that helps your burnout and you actually do get instant gratification from. Like, there's no delay from seeing the benefit of cleaning up your desk.
Right.
There's no delay of right before our call, guess what I did? I put all of the dishes that were in my sink in the dishwasher so I can run it later. That is an instant hit of, yes, I've done something productive. Yes, I've taken something off my to-do list. It's part of the reason, actually, why often we procrastinate by tidying up. I'm so guilty of that. If I have a larger project to work on that I'm not 100% in the headspace to work on, I'll find something to tidy up. I'll fold the blankets on my couch, or I'll put away dishes like I just did. So it's actually something that I actually think the benefit of organization and stuff like that is it's something you can leverage when you're burned out and don't really have that headspace to put into a larger project. You can use it to organize. So I actually think that's kind of a way to think about it of, oh, this is actually working with my psychology and my totally human nature desire to procrastinate.
Yeah.
You can almost like work with that part of your brain instead of feeling like you're working against it.
Yeah, it's almost like hacking your brain, right?
Exactly.
You're like, I'm going to procrastinate anyway, so let me procrastinate productively.
Exactly. I've literally talked about productive procrastination in so many ways, like planning as a procrastination tool. I feel like a lot of people do that who are high achievers. Organizing as a procrastination tool is actually something that I'm a big fan of.
Yeah, and then you just feel fucking fantastic afterwards, you're like, I didn't really like need to do the dishes right now, but it feels like I did a good thing.
Exactly, that dopamine hit.
Yeah. Yeah, you can be really proud of yourself when you see
Exactly.
the immediate results. So, as far as burnout recovery goes, what are ways that we can reclaim our energy or restore our energy levels?
Absolutely. And I love how you said reclaim and restore because it really is just about getting some R&R. My favorite way to talk about this is the 9 types of rest. And I'm going to go ahead and share my screen again. And full transparency, this is from the 9 Types Co. It's actually based around the Enneagram, the 9 types of the Enneagram. But I definitely feel like there's a place for all of this in our lives. We can benefit from each of these different types of rest, even if we're not that Enneagram type. But the first type of rest is time away. And I think sometimes we can overcomplicate time away. Time away does not need to be a full-blown vacation to Hawaii. It can just be a staycation. Like my boyfriend and I have literally talked about what if we spent a weekend on Vashon Island, which I kid you not is a 15-minute ferry ride across the water from right where I live. So it could be a staycation, or it could be just taking some space and some time off. Not helping is another type of rest. Like give yourself permission to just take care of yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Do everything for other people. This is big for my people who identify as people pleasers. Unproductivity. This is the one that is geared toward people who are Enneagram type 3 high achievers, is we often feel the need to be productive in everything that we do. Not everything needs to be a to-do list item. We can just purely do something for joy and creativity. That's what this one is. Art and nature. is just get outside, especially if you're missing meaning and creativity. That is going to be huge piece of rest and recovery for you. Solitude. I'm an introvert, contrary to what you see on your screen. I love me some alone time. My mug says homebody.
This is the mug that I spotted on your Instagram feed, and I was like, that woman knows my heart. So I reached out to you.
So this is probably yours then, is solitude. Give yourself some you time that's just purely to recharge and that is free of demands. My morning routine, I protect that with my life from my boyfriend even. I am like, no, you do not, this is my time. Like, I'm not texting you. You are not out here on the couch with me. I am by myself when I am in solitude. So that's that one. A break from responsibility, I'm not even going to go deeper into because that's pretty freaking self-explanatory. Stop being responsible for everything and just take a break. I love me a day with no plans. I'm actually kind of getting ahead of myself, but that's kind of how I think of a break from responsibility.
Mm-hmm.
Stillness, just stop moving. Stop moving and doing things and to-do listing. I love meditation for this because it's one of the few times in my day where it forces my brain to be still. So I love meditation for stillness.
I have been, trying to be really good about my meditation practice for the past few months. And one thing that I noticed was that, even though I set aside this time for meditation, my brain was still constantly, running those to-do lists while Tamara Levitt on the Calm app was trying to like soothe me and calm me and ground me. And one thing that I found to be really, really game changing when it came to, going deeper into my meditation was to actually externalize all those thoughts before going into the meditation. So like write out all the things that are on your mind so that you can just dump it all out before engaging in this practice that's supposed to be restful.
I actually even I do something similar to that, but I do something as well where sometimes you have a thought come up during meditation that you hadn't had before. And it's an important thing that you need to remember, or a to-do list item or person you need to contact. Early on when I was meditating, I would just keep a little notebook next to my meditation space. So if stuff like that came up, instead of trying to fight it and force it back down out of my brain, I would just disconnect for 2 seconds, write it down, and go back to meditating. And I found that incredibly helpful. Instead of just trying to fight the things that came up, to just kind of go with it, like escape for 2 seconds and then come back in, which some meditation teachers might not like, but honestly, it worked so well for me.
Yeah, it's, giving yourself permission, right, to just acknowledge that your human thoughts are going to come up, and to address them quickly, right? That doesn't make you like a loser meditator. Right?
Exactly. I actually feel like whoever put it out there that said meditation is about, not thinking has really screwed a lot of people over, because I think it's a lot less about, it's not about not thinking. I think it's more about not being reactive to your thoughts.
Yeah. That person's going to come for you.
Whatever.
What'd you say?
But yeah, our last two then are just safe space. Try to find whether it's a person or a place where you feel like you can let your guard down. This actually might be art and nature for you. When I was in college, I actually had a spot that I was just kind of like my special place. And when I needed to escape, I would just go there and I would just sit on this little bench by the water, and it was wonderful. And then lastly, alone time at home. As I already said this, but I relish a day with no plans. I am stoked for this weekend because I have no plans this weekend, and it is going to be amazing. So that's what you need. But these are the 9 types of rest. And as I said at the bottom, it's originally meant for the Enneagram, but I honestly think there's so much power to it for all of us.
Yeah, thank you so much for sharing. That's so enlightening. Can you let us know how people can stay in contact with you and work with you? I just, I love I love all the science that you bring to it.
Yeah,
And I
definitely.
know
I mean,
people are hungry for that.
I'm at Coach Ellyn everywhere. I'm at Coach Ellyn, Ellyn, for those of you, if it's, read the title. I'm sure my name's in the title. But Ellyn, I'm at Coach Ellyn on Instagram, and Instagram's my happy place. Like we talked earlier about the whole, you might be planning an escape. I feel like Instagram is where I escape. I love it. And watching my Instagram stories is a great way to just learn my personality and see if it's like, oh, I will vibe with this person, or no, this person will irritate the hell out of me. You'll find out on my Instagram stories. I'm coachellyn.com is my website, and I've got tons of free resources, podcasts, blog posts, a lot of stuff there. And then where else would be? I mean, I'm on Twitter and LinkedIn as well, but Instagram and my website are probably the two best places. And actually, could I say one more thing? I just realized I have one more little thing to say. Haha. I don't know if that messes up your video or anything,
No.
but I think a big thing that we need to think about when it comes to burnout, and I realized I didn't say this in the last question, I wanted to make sure I threw it out there, is it's about the quality of your life. And we can totally accept our burnout and our stress and our low energy, but I know all of us want to have a high quality of life. And when I was burned out in graduate school, I realized that I looked at how I was spending my time, and I had that profound moment of, is this all there is? Like, aren't I capable of so much more than this? And it was textbook achievement without fulfillment. And I think why so many of us feel this is because we've just kind of gotten to a point where we're just a little disenchanted or jaded by our lives. And that's emotional burnout right there. And I think upon realizing that, it empowers you to make the changes that you need to. And those changes might take energy and they might be highly uncomfortable, but it's going to make the quality of your life so much better. And that just loops back to that whole thing of burnout is a choice. You can have that realization, which I feel like so many of us have, and choose not to do differently, or you can have that realization and choose to do different. Either way, it's a choice.
Mm-hmm.
So it's all just about what choice you're willing to make.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for encouraging us to choose wisely and choose for our highest self. Thanks again. This has been another episode of This Calm Little Corner. Check out Ellyn and connect.